You ever live somewhere that just feels strange? I moved into a quiet, suburban neighborhood last spring. The kind where people wave from their driveways and water their lawns at the same time every morning. The kind of place where nothing ever happens. Or so I thought. My neighbor Denise lived alone. Mid-50s, always kept to herself. Her lawn was immaculate, her curtains always drawn, and she never missed trash day. We spoke maybe twice. The first time was when I moved in. She brought over yellow cake, store-bought, but the gesture was nice. The second time, she apologized for a power drill going late one night. Said she was fixing something in the basement. That was it, but 3 weeks ago, everything changed. It was a Thursday night, around 2 a.m., when I woke up to the most blood-curdling scream I've ever heard. It came from Denise's house. It wasn't just a scream. It was screams. Long, guttural, desperate. I bolted upright in bed, heart racing. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. But then it happened again. Louder, followed by a crashing sound like furniture being thrown. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? There's someone screaming at my neighbor's house. I think someone's being attacked. Officers arrived about 10 minutes later. I watched from my window as they knocked on Denise's door. She answered, in workout tights and a sports bra, calm, smiling. They talked for a few minutes. I saw her laugh. Then the cops left. No arrest, no urgency. I couldn't sleep after that. The next morning, I walked over to get some answers. She was watering her roses like nothing happened. "Hey, Denise, are you all right?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She looked at me like I was the crazy one. "Of course. Why?" I heard something last night. Screaming. It sounded like it came from your house." She blinked, tilted her head. "Oh, that. I was watching a movie. I like the volume up high. It helps with the immersion." I stood there, stunned. That was not a movie scream. That was real, raw, terrified. She smiled. "Next time I'll keep it down." And just like that, she turned around and went inside. For the next few days, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. I started noticing weird things, like how the curtains in her upstairs window never moved, or how I never saw anyone come or go, even though sometimes I'd hear 2 voices inside her house. One was definitely hers. The other was too muffled to make out. One night, I saw her in her backyard, digging. It was around midnight. She had a small shovel and a flashlight tucked under her arm, just casually digging a hole near her rose bushes. I recorded it on my phone. The next day, I walked by and saw fresh soil and a new rose bush planted. A perfect circle, almost like she was hiding something beneath it. I couldn't let it go. I posted the footage anonymously on a local forum, asking if anyone else had noticed strange things about Denise. A woman messaged me privately. Her name was Linda. She said she lived in the neighborhood until 6 months ago. Her message said, "Be careful. My daughter used to babysit for Denise. She went missing last year. Cops did nothing. They said she ran away. But I always had a bad feeling about that woman." That was enough for me. I emailed the footage, and our conversation to the police. They said they'd look into it, but I could tell they weren't taking it seriously. So I decided to do something. I was going to see for myself what was going on in that house. I waited until Denise left for the grocery store, a rare occasion I'd memorized from watching her routine. When her car pulled away, I slipped through her backyard gate and walked up to her basement door. It was unlocked. The second I stepped inside, the air changed. It was cold, damp, smelled like metal and bleach. I moved slowly, heart pounding. The basement was cluttered, boxes, old tools, shelves stacked with dusty books and jars filled with I don't even know what. Then I saw it, a large old freezer, the industrial kind. It was chained shut. I crouched beside it. That's when I heard it. Knocking from the inside. I froze. It wasn't loud, more like a tap, 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 as if someone inside was too weak to knock hard. I stood up, backing away. That's when I heard footsteps above me. She was back. I had misjudged her trip. I panicked and ducked behind a set of shelves just as the basement door creaked open. Footsteps on the stairs. She came down slowly, humming, casual, happy. She walked over to the freezer. And then she whispered to it. I told you to stop making noise. I held my breath as she unhooked the chain and opened the lid. From my hiding spot, I saw her lift something out. A bucket? A bowl? Then, the sound of water. Splashing. Bathing something? I felt bile rise in my throat. After a few minutes, she closed the freezer, rehooked the chain, and went back upstairs. I waited 10 full minutes before I moved. I wanted to open that freezer. I needed to know what was inside, but I couldn't do it. The chain was too tight and the risk too high. I ran home, called law enforcement again, sent them everything, the footage, the messages, the video of her digging. That night, they came with a warrant. What they found made headlines. Inside the freezer was a young woman. Alive. Barely. She had been missing for 5 months. A college student from a nearby city. Denise had kidnapped her, kept her in the basement, drugged her, recorded everything. There were files on Denise's computer documenting her experiments. And that wasn't all. Beneath the rose bush in the backyard was a shallow grave. Inside were the remains of another woman, unidentified, decomposed beyond recognition. The police believed Denise had been doing this for years, picking victims, torturing them, recording their decline. No one ever suspected her, because she was polite, quiet, helpful, the kind of neighbor everyone thinks is harmless. After her arrest, she was completely calm, smiling, even offered one of the officers a cake she had baked. But here's the part that still haunts me. The girl in the freezer, the one they rescued, when they interviewed her, she said something strange. She kept saying I was her daughter, that I had come back to her. She said I died in 2002, but now I was alive again. The doctors think Denise had a psychotic break, that she was trying to recreate her daughter, who supposedly drowned decades ago. but the way she planned everything. The hidden cameras, the locked freezer, the graves. That wasn't just madness. That was method. And every night now, I check my windows 3 times before bed. I double lock every door. I sleep with a light on. Because I keep thinking about how long Denise lived next to me, and how close I came to becoming the next girl in the freezer. I used to think I was lucky to have a helpful neighbor. Gary lived right next door. Late 50s, quiet, but always polite. The type of guy who'd wave every morning, take your trash bins out if you forgot, and mow a strip of your lawn while doing his own. That kind of neighbor. When I moved into the townhouse last year, I was nervous about living alone. Freshly out of a breakup and starting over. So when Gary came over and offered to help install curtain rods, I accepted. He brought over a drill, a measuring tape, even a level. All the tools I didn't have yet. Looking back, that was the first time he stepped inside. Over the next few months, he helped with other things, fixing a leaky faucet, replacing a smoke detector. Once, when I mentioned my bathroom fan was broken, he offered to take a look. I didn't think twice. He was just being kind, right? Then, a few weeks ago, things started feeling different. I'd come home and swear my bedroom window was open when I left it closed. My toothbrush felt moved. Once, I found the cap to my shampoo missing. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe I was just stressed from work. But that night, I was brushing my teeth when I caught something strange in the mirror. A small black dot behind the wall vent near the ceiling. Barely visible unless you were looking for it. I got a chair, climbed up, and unscrewed the vent. Inside was a tiny black camera. A camera. Pointed directly at the bathroom mirror, at the shower. I felt sick. My mind ran wild. How long had it been there? Had he seen me? What else had he seen? I took the camera to the police the next morning. The detective asked me a ton of questions. Who had access to the house? Had I had recent work done? That's when I mentioned Gary. Their expressions changed. They asked for his full name, and I gave it to them. Later that evening, I got a call. You need to leave your house. Now. What? Why? We're serving a search warrant on your neighbor. Go stay somewhere safe. I packed a bag in a daze and went to my friend Sarah's. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about how many times Gary had been in my house, how many excuses he'd made to help with repairs. I wondered if there were more cameras, places I hadn't noticed. The next day, the detective called again. What he told me made my blood run cold. They found multiple cameras, not just one. 2 in the bathroom, one behind a loose tile near the bathtub, another hidden inside a vent in the hallway, one in my bedroom light fixture, even one disguised as a USB wall charger near my bed. Gary had been watching me for months, possibly from the beginning, but it didn't stop there. On his computer, police found hundreds of files, footage of me, labeled by date, some labeled with names of other women. Some of these files were years old. That meant I wasn't the first. It gets worse. Buried deep in his hard drive were folders titled "with addresses." Police linked them to previous addresses he had lived next to over the past decade. Every address had a female neighbor. Every folder had recordings. And then, one folder was titled simply, Samantha. That name made the detective pause, because that name had come up in a cold case, Samantha Reynolds, a 28-year-old woman who went missing 3 years ago in a small town Gary had once lived in. They never found her body. No leads. Just one night, she was gone. Inside the Samantha folder were recordings. Terrifying ones. Samantha getting undressed, taking showers, talking on the phone. One video, labeled Final.mp4, showed Samantha sleeping. The timestamp was dated the same night she vanished. Gary was arrested, charged with invasion of privacy, stalking, and is now being investigated in connection with multiple missing women cases. But here's the part that haunts me most. After the police cleared my house, I hired a professional to sweep it again, just in case. He found something. Behind the bathroom mirror, where the first camera had been, was a small compartment I hadn't noticed before. Inside was a note, just a sticky note. But on it were 5 words. I see you, every day. The handwriting matched Gary's. He never left that note by accident. He wanted me to find it, eventually. To this day, I don't know if there were more notes, more hidden compartments, more plans. I moved to a different state, got a new job, new number. But sometimes, when I'm in the shower or walking through my apartment at night, I get this feeling I'm being watched. Like somewhere out there, someone is still looking. I check my vents, my smoke detectors, my outlets. I don't trust anybody, especially neighbors, especially the nice ones, because Gary was the nicest of them all.
I used to think my neighbor, Mr. Dwyer, was just lonely. He was that guy who stood in his yard every morning in the same navy blue robe, sipping coffee, staring into the distance like he was waiting for something. He never waved, never smiled, just stared. Everyone on our street whispered about him, but no one really knew anything about him. When I moved into the neighborhood a few months ago, I tried to be polite. I'd wave and say, "Good morning," or "Good afternoon." Nothing. He'd just turn his back and shuffle inside. I asked my landlord if Mr. Dwyer was all right. She paused, way too long, and said, "He's quiet, keeps to himself." But there was something strange about how she said it, like it was rehearsed. Still, I let it go. People have their quirks. I work from home, live alone, and honestly, figured I'd been that weird neighbor in other places too. Then the packages started arriving. Almost every day, the delivery guy would drop a box on Mr. Dwyer's porch. Heavy boxes, some labeled Forensics Unlimited, others just blank. One day, a delivery guy knocked on my door by mistake, holding one of Dwyer's packages. It was leaking. A thick reddish-brown stain had soaked through the bottom. I said, "That's not mine." The guy glanced at the label, muttered, "Damn," and walked it over next door, leaving a faint trail on my welcome mat. That's when the smell started. Rotten. Faint at first, but it grew stronger every day. I thought maybe something had died in the walls, but it wasn't coming from my house. It was Dwyer's. I finally asked one of the older ladies down the block, Mrs. Halpern, about him. She looked around like she was being watched and said quietly, "Don't get involved with that man. Just don't." That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., I got up for water. That's when I noticed something across the street. Mr. Dwyer was in his garage, with the door wide open. Under the flickering light, he was crouched over something on the floor. At first, I thought it was a deer, but it had fingers. I froze. He looked up, not toward me, just toward the street. His hands were dripping with something dark. He picked up what looked like a trash bag and dragged it into the shadows. The garage door slowly rolled shut. I didn't sleep after that. I tried calling the police the next day, but all they said was, "Do you have proof of a crime?" Without video or photos, there wasn't much they could do. "Keep an eye out," they said. So I did. For the next few nights, I watched from my upstairs window. Every night, Dwyer would drag something out from the house, toss it into a black barrel behind the garage, and light a fire. Whatever he was burning made the smell even worse. On the fifth night, he didn't go back inside right away. He just stood there, looking up, right at my window. I backed away slowly and shut the blinds. The next morning, there was a package on my doorstep. No label, no postage, just a plain brown box. Inside was a pair of gloves, surgical, soaked in something red, and a note. "You should have listened." I lost it, called the police again. This time they sent someone out. I told them everything: the fire, the smell, the garage, the package. They knocked on Mr. Dwyer's door. He answered smiling. That was the first time I'd ever seen him smile. It was worse than the silence. He invited them in. 10 minutes later, the officer came back, shrugged, and told me they didn't find anything. Said Dwyer was odd but harmless. Suggested I maybe take a break from watching horror movies. I was furious. That night I couldn't sit still. I kept hearing noises. My house creaked like it never had before. But around 1 a.m., I heard a distinct sound. A knock. Not at the door, at my back window. I grabbed a flashlight and flicked it on. Nothing. I checked every room. Nothing. But when I got to the kitchen, the back door was unlocked. I never leave it unlocked. The next morning, I made a decision. I was going into Dwyer's garage. I had to know. I waited until he left. He always walked around the block at exactly 10 a.m. I slipped across the street and pried open a side window. Inside, the garage was dim, lit only by slivers of sun through the boards. It smelled like chemicals and rot. There were barrels, dozens of them, all sealed, and in the corner, a workbench with folders. I opened one. Photos, dozens of people, men, women, even a kid, all bound, eyes wide, some lifeless. And on the wall above the bench was a bulletin board. Every photo was pinned with the name, date, location. He documented everything, like trophies. One name stopped me cold. My name. With today's date. That's when I heard the door slam shut, and his voice, low and calm. "You weren't supposed to see that." I turned, but he was already there, blocking the door. "I've lived here for 27 years, he said. "I blend in. People stop asking questions eventually." I backed toward the window. "You should have listened to Mrs. Halpern." I made a run for it, shoved past him, barely squeezing through the side window. I didn't look back. I called the cops. Again. But by the time they arrived, the garage was spotless. Barrels, gone. Photos, gone. Even the smell, gone. They treated me like I was crazy. Again. But I know what I saw. And last week, a new family moved in across the street. They said Mr. Dwyer left suddenly. No warning. I tried to warn them, gave them everything I had, but they looked at me the same way I used to look at him, like I was just lonely. But here's the thing. Last night, I found a new package on my porch. No label, just my name, written in red ink. Inside, a photo of me, asleep in my bed, taken from inside my room. I always thought moving into a quiet cul-de-sac would bring peace. No more blaring car horns at 2 a.m., no more drunken shouting outside my apartment window, and no more sleepless nights. But I learned something. Quiet doesn't always mean safe. Sometimes it's the silence that hides the worst things. I moved in mid-spring to a nice suburban neighborhood. Community pool, clean lawns, kids riding bikes, the kind of place that looks like a stock photo. But then, there was him. His house was directly across from mine. One story, slightly run down, but nothing out of the ordinary. I never saw him during the day, but every night, like clockwork, his living room light would flick on at 10:03 p.m. sharp, and his curtains, always wide open. At first, I didn't think anything of it, just a guy who didn't care about privacy. But one night, I glanced out my window and I saw him. He was just standing there, dead still, in the middle of the room, staring at the TV. No movement, no flickering images on the screen. The TV was off. Just a man, standing in silence in an empty room every night. Watching nothing. A week passed. He did it every single night. Same time, same position, same dead expression. I told myself maybe he had a condition. Maybe he was just weird. But something felt wrong. Then one night he turned his head and looked directly at me. I froze. The lights in my house were off. My blinds were only slightly parted. There was no way he could have seen me. And yet, his eyes locked with mine like he knew I'd been watching. And then, he smiled. The next morning, I found something under my front door. A note. No envelope. No name. Just one sentence written in blocky handwriting. You should close your curtains too. My stomach dropped. I hadn't told anyone. No one could have known I was watching him. The rest of the day, I was paranoid. Every shadow made me jump. Every sound made my heart pound. That night, I closed my curtains. But curiosity got the better of me. Around 10:10, I peeked through a slit. And what I saw chilled me to the core. There was someone else in the room. A woman, barely visible behind him, standing in the shadows. She wasn't moving. She looked limp. He was smiling again, but now he was holding her hand, just standing there like a display. The next night, she was gone. I called the police the next morning. I told them I saw something suspicious, a possible domestic violence situation. I didn't mention the note. I didn't want to sound like a complete lunatic. They came, knocked. He answered, smiling, calm. They searched the house and found nothing. No woman, no signs of a struggle. They said the place was eerily clean, too clean, like it was never lived in. But without evidence, they couldn't do anything. And that night, the lights came on again. Like before, he wasn't alone. This time, there were 3 people standing in the room with him, each perfectly still, each staring ahead, their faces pale. My heart raced. I grabbed my phone and zoomed in with the camera. What I saw still keeps me up at night. They weren't blinking. They weren't breathing. They weren't people. They were mannequins. Lifelike. Too lifelike. And he stood among them like he was proud, like he was showing them off. I contacted a friend of mine who's a private investigator. We ran a check on the guy. No social media, no job records, no lease in his name, nothing. Then my friend found an online news report from 8 years ago. There was a man who lived in that house. Same appearance, same face. He went missing, presumed dead in a house fire. But there was no fire. Just the report of a disturbing collection of mannequins in the basement. The article never made national news. Too bizarre, too little evidence. I did something reckless. I waited until 3 a.m. when the lights were off and I snuck to his house. The door was unlocked. Inside, it was like walking into a set for a horror movie. Every room had mannequins, sitting, standing. One was posed as if cooking at the stove. Another was lying in a bed, arms folded over its chest. Their faces were painted with detail, individual eyelashes, veins, wrinkles. Too much detail. In the living room, I saw the original three, and beside them, a new one, a woman. Her clothes matched the woman I saw weeks ago, the one standing behind him. I moved closer. Her skin wasn't plastic, it was real. I stumbled back in horror, crashing into a table. That's when I heard the click of a door upstairs. He was awake. I didn't look back. I sprinted out the door, heart in my throat. He didn't follow. Or maybe he did. I didn't stop running long enough to find out. The police searched the house the next morning, and again, everything was gone. The mannequins, the furniture, even the carpets, like the place had never been lived in. All that was left was a single chair in the living room, facing the window, and taped to the chair, a photo of me, watching from my window. I moved 8 months later. It took me that long to sell the house. I ended up selling all my belongings. The house across the street stayed empty, but every so often, I wake up in a cold sweat, certain I seen a flash of light across the street in my new home. And just for a second, I swear I see the living room glow, and someone standing perfectly still behind a wide open window.